First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
Almost a month ago, I began this position as First Unitarian's Faith Formation and Congregational Life Coordinator, with a mouthful of a title and almost as big of a task ahead of me. Coming back to this congregational life in person, and after several months with no program coordinators on staff, means there is a lot of work ahead of us. And I am very honored to be doing this work with all of you. This morning, I'm putting on one of my hats to talk about something we've called many names, which we currently call faith formation. I don't believe these are the best possible words that we can ever come up with to talk about this process of learning and growing together. But I do think they illustrate something meaningful about our tradition. In our children's chapel earlier this morning, I talked a little bit about this. And in this sermon, I will dig further into what it means for us to form our faith and why it's important. We form our faith, I believe, on at least two levels, the personal and the collective. When we talk about forming our faith, we talk about forming our own sense of the world as individuals and what we value. Here, we can also talk about supporting each other in this work. At this point, however, we can also begin to look into another level of forming our faith. We begin to talk about forming our living tradition, Unitarian Universalism itself, shaping and molding its present and future. That's the challenge and the great opportunity this tradition offers us, the chance to build it ourselves. No one hands us this faith as though handing over a box full of answers for us to sift through and incorporate into our lives. Instead, this tradition meets us with an open palm of possibility. It hands us the freedom and the responsibility to find our own answers to life's questions. This is what I think appeals to many newcomers in our tradition, and it's certainly been appealing to me. Looking back, my own childhood faith formation was very different, full of answers only loosely tied to questions. When I look at my own experience in confirmation, I remember our teacher presenting us with a very meat and potatoes, plain Jane vision of what it meant to be a Catholic adult. It was a presentation on what Catholics do, what Catholics believe, but without even much of an explanation as to why we do or should believe in these things. There was little talk about what's beautiful or nourishing, or even any warning about what would happen if we don't do or believe what we're supposed to. Instead, our teacher and community expected we would be Catholic because our parents were Catholic, and our grandparents, and so many other generations before us. What else could we possibly do or become? Then why would we want to be anything else? At this point in my life, though, I had questions these answers didn't satisfy. I was already questioning my commitments to Christianity and its God, and I had found many of my answers in paganism. But I didn't find answers to all of my questions, namely, where am I going to grow in the presence of others? That's what led me here. I remember standing here in this very church, out at our brochure rack, browsing through as a teenager after a music recital. I was reading about the home people of different faith backgrounds had found in Unitarian Universalism. I was incredibly impressed by the portrait this little brochure painted of our tradition. It said, "This is where question askers of all kinds and backgrounds come together to find and help each other find their answers." That thread running through our tradition is ultimately why I'm a Unitarian Universalist. I have found something deeply nourishing about the process of forming our individual and collective faith in the company of peers. In a place where it seems like no one and everyone is an expert and an answer holder. No one has all the answers, and everyone has some, and everyone also has an abundance of questions. My first real encounter with this was with my college congregation's young adult group, where we gathered every Sunday over lunch and spent time sharing and learning from each other's viewpoints and experiences. Outside of a few deeper conversations with childhood friends, I had never encountered a place where we could just be, learning from one another. My appreciation for how our tradition forms faith continued to deepen when I mentored a youth in that congregation's coming of age program. Through coming of age, our tradition asks, what does it mean to be an adult in this community? And it answers that question by telling our youth, find out for yourself. It was so moving to be a young adult companioning the young people, the future adults of our tradition, as they find their own answers to life's big questions. Questions like, is there something bigger and deeper in the universe than us humans? Does something happen to us after we die? What does it mean to be a good person? And why is that important? It has been so moving to see the promise of our tradition in action. In this tradition, we form our faith, our sense of the world and our values with the support and guidance of one another. This is the personal or interpersonal dimension of faith formation. It stands on its own as something valuable and important. We have to have our own frameworks and foundations before we turn to building something bigger together. And when we continue developing these foundations for long enough, this process leads us to the collective sense of forming our faith. We form this faith, this tradition, Unitarian Universalism, together through all of our own development. It is the sum of all our questions and answers. And I see this most clearly in the faith formation programming we offer our children and our youth. This is the programming we offer so that the future adults of our world will love to ask questions and seek answers as much as we do. That they will not be content to have the answers handed to them without reason or question. I have heard many people in this place call children and their families the future of our community. These young ones here among us today will be the future leaders of our world. And with all of our care and support, they will grow up to be the leaders of our tradition as well. If they are the future of Unitarian Universalism, it is because we expect that they will stick around for it as adults. As the adults of our present tradition, we have to do what we can to encourage that here and now. We can't just assume that our children and youth will grow up and remain in our tradition without our guidance or support. If we are here, if we are to believe that these children and families among us are our future, we have to show them how much we care about that future. We need to be here for them. A couple of days ago, I was talking with one of our teachers, someone I and many of us look up to as an expert educator in this congregation. And with heavy hearts, we realized that we would not have the support we need to offer our congregation's sex education program for middle schoolers this year. After weeks of asking the people in our congregation who were certified to teach this class, we don't have enough teachers available to facilitate it. Instead, we will spend this year regrouping and planning to offer OWL again in 2023. Meanwhile, we will continue looking for teachers to work with our other age groups, building and rebuilding the faith formation of this tradition, this congregation. I tell you this to highlight the urgency of our situation and to invite all of you, all of us, to live into our values. We find ourselves at a juncture in our congregation's life, shaken by change and encouraged by the possibilities ahead of us. It's time to tend to those possibilities now. If you felt anxious about the future of our congregation, you or someone next to you may have said, "We need more kids in this congregation." And if you've said, "We need more kids in this congregation," and you don't have kids in classes, and you're not already providing faith formation as a teacher, this is your call. This is your call to care for the future of our congregation right now. We don't need adults who are perfect or who have advanced degrees in education or child psychology. We don't even need adults with a spotless, empty plate, because really, who among us is that? More than anything, we need adults that care about our children, our families, our future. This is also what it means to form our faith, to care, to nurture its future and all its possibilities.